South Africa's political experiment is about to explode because the ruling coalition, the so-called Government of National Unity, is turning into a government of open war. The Democratic Alliance, once the opposition, is now in power beside the ANC, but today it just declared war on one of the most sacred pillars of post-apartheid South Africa, Black economic empowerment. And what happens next could collapse the fragile alliance that's holding the country and its economy together. This is not just a political move, this is a direct strike at the foundation of how wealth and power are distributed in Africa's most unequal nation. In this episode of Border Files, we're going deep into what the mainstream media won't tell you. The real reasons the DA wants to scrap BE now. How this battle could reshape South Africa's entire economy, and why global investors from London to Dubai are secretly watching this moment like hawks. Because this isn't just about race or empowerment. It's about who gets to own the future of South Africa and who's been manipulating the system all along. On Monday morning in Johannesburg, DA Head of Policy Matthew Cuthbert dropped a political bomb. The DA announced its new Economic Inclusion for All bill, calling for the total repeal of all race-based laws in public procurement, and the end of BE as we know it. The message was brutal and clear. BE, once seen as the tool to correct apartheid's injustices, has become, in their words, a machine of state-sponsored corruption, theft, and fraud. And here's the catch. They're not wrong about the corruption. Billions have been siphoned through empowerment deals that empowered only the connected, not the poor, not the marginalized, and certainly not the millions still trapped in unemployment lines. But the timing? That's what's making this move nuclear. Because the DA is part of the GNU, a fragile 10-party coalition born from a desperate attempt to stabilize the nation after the ANC lost its majority in 2024. And now, barely a year later, the DA is attacking the ANC's ideological heart, the very policy the ANC believes defines its mission since 1994. BE isn't just an economic policy. It's a symbolic contract between the ANC and millions of South Africans, a promise that the pain of apartheid would somehow be balanced by economic justice. So when the DA says we're scrapping race-based preference, it's not just technocratic language, it's political dynamite. The ANC will never accept this repeal quietly. Sources inside Luthuli House already hint that senior ANC figures see the DA's move as a betrayal of the coalition. But here's where it gets darker. Behind the scenes, several GNU partners, including the Inkatha Freedom Party and smaller centrist blocs, are being courted to take sides. This isn't just a policy debate, it's a power alignment. And whoever wins this fight will control the next phase of South Africa's political realignment. Because if BE falls, the entire post-apartheid power equation falls with it. This battle isn't confined to Pretoria or Parliament. International investors, the ones controlling billions in capital, are already reading this as a potential turning point. London fund managers see the DA's plan as pro-business. Washington analysts call it the boldest free market reform since 1994. But Beijing and Moscow? They see something else. Because China's state-owned giants have benefited massively from BE-aligned partnerships, acquiring influence in energy, telecoms, and mining through empowerment deals that connected them to local political elites. If those laws are scrapped, it's not just South Africa's internal system that's shaken. It's China's access to Africa's most strategic economy. And the Western world? They're smiling quietly. Because a South Africa without BE might mean fewer state-linked monopolies, more competition, and, crucially, a pivot back toward Western capital. But this also means one thing: foreign powers are about to interfere. Behind closed doors, diplomatic cables have already warned that the collapse of BE could trigger social unrest. They're not wrong. South Africa's unemployment rate stands above 33%. Among youth, it's closer to 60%. BE was supposed to fix that, but after 3 decades, the rich are richer and the poor are angrier. So the question is no longer about empowerment. It's about who gets blamed next. If the DA wins this fight, it could be celebrated by business and condemned by the streets. If the ANC fights back, it risks breaking the coalition and triggering another election that could destroy what's left of its power. The DA is betting that public frustration with corruption will outweigh the anger over race-based reform. And here's the dangerous irony. Both sides are technically right, and both are lying to you. Because this isn't really about racial equity or free markets. It's about control. Control over who gets the tenders, who gets the contracts, who funds the campaigns, and who writes the next chapter of South Africa's political destiny. The DA's Economic Inclusion for All bill isn't just a piece of legislation. It's a strategic trap. If the ANC rejects it, the DA can claim moral high ground. We tried to clean up corruption, they refused. If the ANC accepts it, they lose their identity and hand the DA a propaganda victory heading into the next election. Either way, the DA wins narratively. And narrative in politics is power. But here's where everything shifts again. Inside the GNU, whispers suggest business elites from Sandton to Cape Town have already pledged silent funding to push this reform through. They see this as their moment to break the cycle, to turn South Africa into a true free market state. But that means confronting decades of economic engineering designed to keep power within the same elite circles, just under a different name. This isn't just a clash of parties, it's a collision of 2 South Africas, one built on memory and justice, and one built on money and merit. And they can't coexist forever. In the coming weeks, the GNU will be tested like never before. If the DA pushes this bill to Parliament, expect massive protests, ANC retaliation, and possibly the end of the coalition itself. What no one's admitting publicly is this. If the GNU collapses, markets will panic, the rand will tumble, and South Africa could slide into political paralysis, right when it's fighting to get off the FATF grey list and rebuild investor trust. This isn't just a political debate, it's a countdown. And when it hits 0, South Africa's next decade will be decided, not by speeches or ideals, but by who survives this collision of power. If you feel the ground shifting under South Africa's politics, if you sense that something far bigger is being engineered behind the scenes, you're not imagining it. This story connects billionaires, ideologies, and global power brokers, and the next chapter is already being written. Subscribe now to Border Files and turn on notifications, because the next video will expose who's really funding this political war and what they stand to gain when the system finally breaks.